again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Ilya able to shake away from Solani and skip it away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
And the fans want one. Score! On the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Eddie and I are here to break this down. The Ducks fall to the Detroit Red Wings basically in the third period, 3-1. And, oh, boy, we have quite the show for you guys tonight. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. I just excited to break this one down tonight, Eddie.
You know what? It's so funny watching the transition of like, people just get pissed and getting more and more pissed until it hit, like, 9 and 10. And now it's like almost people are just rooting for it to get higher. It's like how many can we get? Can we break the record? Is that possible? Can we get to 18? Can we get to 18 and Randy Carlyle won't get fired? Like, it's like people are just like hoping we're gonna get there now. They're like, oh, how bad can this get? Because it's just hysterical.
It's not like Detroit's a good team.
They lost 13
they had
of their last 16.
Every opportunity. Well, I mean, we've lost 10 of our last 10.
What? Yeah, but I'm trying to get like an upside here.
I mean, I'm laughing about it now. I'm very frustrated by this team. I don't know what is going on with the management. I don't know what's going on with the players. It's just for whatever reason they can't get it together. Not only are they losing, they're not scoring. They're just not scoring. And Pittsburgh was the highlight for the goals, right? Tonight, only one goal. One, and it was deflected, but one goal on Jimmy Howard and the Red Wings. I mean, that's just it's been tough times, man. Big tough time.
Yeah, it's the same problems. You can't score any goals. It's been like that for a while. Pontus Aberg scratched for 4th straight game because Randy Carlyle said he can't compete. He's not contributing on forecheck and the back check. He's not working. He's not like fulfilling his defensive responsibilities. Well, are you not in communication with Bob Murray? Do you not know that this is what you should expect from Pontus Aberg? This is the type of player that he is. He doesn't back check.
How can he compete if he's not playing in the game?
Well, yeah, that's ridiculous to begin with. And
what?
He does not back check. He is just a pure offensive forward. And he's very streaky. But when he's on his game, he's on his game. He has the skill to do it, but you can't expect this guy to play defense. There's some forwards who just don't have it. They can't play defense. That's why you play him with Ryan Getzlaf, so he doesn't have to play defense. Because if you're playing with Getzlaf and Rakell, you're hoping that most of the time you don't have to play defense because that's your top line. And that's why he's out there. I agree with it. If you don't want to take Sprong or Cash or Richie out of your top 6, then having Pontus Aberg scratch makes sense because if you're playing with Kessler, you're playing with Carter Rowney, he's probably not going to get that many opportunities, and then it's going to be a problem when you got, I guess, your shutdown line or 4th line who gets mismatched, and you've got a guy who can't play defense. So I get that, but I mean, if you're going to say it's because he doesn't back check, that's just ridiculous.
I mean, you got to change it up. You got to do something. And they did. They traded Andrew Cogliano over to the Dallas Stars, basically for his replacement of a little lesser value in Devin Shore, although 7 years younger. We can get some more of that breakdown after we stroll through this lovely game. John Gibson makes a start in net. I gotta say, I was a little surprised.
Really?
I was a little surprised. Like, doesn't the dude deserve a break? I mean, they're not playing well in front of him. Mix it up. Give the guy the night off.
Yeah, throw Chad Johnson in and get the automatic loss.
If you're going to lose anyway, then lose. Like, I mean, whatever. Why? I think Gibby deserves the break. I mean, he doesn't get any breaks while he's in the net.
Embrace the tank. Embrace the tank. Play Chad Johnson the rest of the way out.
That's what I was saying.
Because if you play like this, it doesn't really matter if you play John Gibson or not because you're ruining his Vezina chances anyway. So just give the guy a break. Play Chad Johnson for the next 20 games and go on a 32 game losing streak.
Do what you got to do.
Do what you got to do.
You got to get Hughes or you got to get Kako, right? You got to get one of those two guys.
That's what it's coming to at this point. And that's what everybody wants. It's no longer, I want to get a win so we can get out of this losing streak. It's, I want Hughes. I want Cabo Caco. Let's hit the most ridiculous thing that's so funny about how everybody's handling this, and it's great, I love it, is that everybody just wants to beat the record, or they're just so curious to see how far this is going to go.
I mean, well, what are you supposed to do at this point, right? Management's not giving anyone any sort of insight or clue as to what their plan is, other than changes are going to be made. We expect more out of our guys. Great.
Well,
That's what we've heard for 2 years, Bob.
Yeah, Ike brought up a good point in our YouTube chat. He said, I'm almost curious what it's going to take to get the Samuelis involved. I mean, that's the only point I see anything happening, right? Because Bob Murray's not doing anything. Otherwise, he would have done it by now. He traded Cogliano. What does that do? Didn't help.
I mean, Devin Shore looked okay tonight. I didn't think he looked out of place. I didn't think he looked terrible. But, I mean, Cogliano didn't look out of place, didn't look terrible most nights, too. He just couldn't score a goal.
He's not supposed to score goals.
Let's wander through this this snooze fest of a game, because we have to. We got to talk about a goal scorer who hasn't, been around for a bit and now has 2 in the past few games. So we can get to that. But, I mean, you're looking at a game that largely, Eddie, I know you missed the first period, but you didn't really miss anything. It was so boring. Literally, I wrote in the middle of our notes, boring. I should have put 12 O's, but I didn't. I think I put like 6 or 7. Just
makes
what
it
happened.
That much more dramatic.
But we got to talk about a play that did happen in this. It wasn't good. It's not good for Anaheim. It's going to affect them much further after this game, and if it's long term. But Jakob Silfverberg goes awkwardly into the boards. He gets tangled up. His left leg gets tangled up with Mike Green along the wall. He's able to skate to the bench under his own power, but then he goes immediately to the dressing room, and that's terrible. That's not good. He's the main guy we're talking about trading here, and we'll get to Murray's statement on that later as well. But that's what everyone's kind of been looking at, right? He's a UFA, and he is going to be commanding probably $4 to $6 million. The Ducks don't really need to do that. They need to get assets and drive this team younger. But not good to see Silfverberg go down like that.
This is Bob Murray's perfect moment here, because now if he's hurt, he can't trade him, and then he can say, "Oh, I didn't trade him because he was hurt, and now I have to resign him, or we're gonna lose him for nothing." This is a perfect storm for Bob Murray. I mean, when you lose, you just, I mean, when you have bad luck, everything goes wrong, and the Ducks can't win a game. And now, luckily, Ryan Kessler came back, who also got injured tonight and left to the locker room at one point. But Silfverberg, I think, is the big one. Obviously, nothing against Ryan Kessler, but if you're trying to move Silfverberg, which I think both of us agree you should do, if he's hurt, and with the trade deadline's not super close, it's still over a month away. It's on February 25th. Yeah, it's on February 25th. But, depending on what the injury is, the good thing is he got up off on his own power, and it didn't look like it was too bad because he walked off. He was limping a little bit, but it wasn't like he had to be helped off the ice and couldn't put weight on it. So maybe he just tweaked it a bit. Maybe he sprained his knee. I don't know. We'll have to see. Hopefully it's not too bad, because the longer he's out, the more it hurts his trade value at this point, because he was starting to play pretty well. He was getting in a good opportunity to up his trade value playing with Ryan Getzlaf, and then of course he gets hurt. I mean, of course, what else is going to go wrong at this point?
Gibson gets hurt.
We thought he got hurt last game. Luckily, he stayed in the game because he got plowed over by somebody on our own team. I can't remember who it was, but he got plowed over. I thought he was hurt too, and everybody was like, "Oh God, if he gets hurt, then you can seriously embrace the tank." Because Ryan Miller's still out, so you're going with Chad Johnson and calling up Kevin Boyle and going with those two as your starting 2 goaltenders for the rest of the year. That's a full embrace of the tank.
Well, let's move along here to the second period, because literally nothing much else happened in that first period. Go on to the second. Ducks get a power play, and I was kind of like, okay, well, it hasn't been great, but they're actually able to convert on this one. Bertuzzi dumps Dotchin in front of the net. Dotchin actually swatted a puck, went off the post, so they call a cross-check on Bertuzzi. Broadcast seemed to think that goal wasn't going to count. I mean, who knows at this point if that would have counted or not had it gone in. But the Ducks go to the power play because of that. Ritchie appears to get on the board. Getzlaf finds that nice, perfect seam pass. And I got to hand it, man. Ritchie got free and then got in the nice soft area of the ice in the upper slot, and he ripped that puck, and it apparently went off the foot of Rickard Rakell, because they later would change the goal to Rickard Rakell. But Ritchie, in my opinion, he's been playing well recently. I mean, none of the guys have been putting the puck in the net, but Ritchie, good on him to help the Ducks get on the board early.
That's where you want to get shots on the power play, right? It's from the slot, and the Ducks haven't been able to do that. And again, of course, though, they do get a little bit of a lucky bounce off Rakell's foot. I had just, I think, gotten home after this goal went in. So I saw that Rakell had scored, and I was like, oh, please tell me he, like, one-timed it off the half wall, and it was a perfect setup. Of course, it hits his foot and goes in. I was just hoping, like, he was going to get going and that he just scored, like, a beautiful goal. Nothing wrong with it. He's in front of the net screening, and it does hit his foot. So, I mean, you give him some credit there. But, yeah, Nick Ritchie, I mean, that's not the guy I expect to be in the slot. Usually it's reversed. You would expect Rickard Rakell to be where Nick Ritchie is and Nick Ritchie to be where Rickard Rakell is. And it would be going in off Nick Ritchie's foot because he's usually the guy who's in front of the net. And he's usually the guy that's going to hit off of and go in. But, give some credit to Nick Ritchie. He's played pretty well lately. Nobody has really stood out and been amazing. The power play has been awful, so it's nice to get one on the board. But every time I think we say this, it's like, oh, it's nice they got a power play goal. But it hit somebody and went in. Or it was a shot that maybe the goalie would want back. It's never like, oh, that was such a beautiful power play goal. Looks like the power play is getting going. It's never that.
No, but you take what you could get when you're on a skid like this, 11-0, or 0-11. Jesus, wish you were on 11-0 skid or run, whatever that is. I can't even get my numbers straight.
What is
the only
winning?
other exciting? I don't know, man. It's been since December 17th. We had also seen another player drop. It would be Ryan Kesler. I didn't really see the play. The broadcast showed he went into the boards, but didn't really go in. I don't know. It just like, I guess, bumped into a Detroit player along the boards and then skated off. And Wentz goes to the bench, and it was like favoring his left side. Not really sure what the issue was, whether it was his hip or his knee. To end the period there, that was the most eventful thing. He actually came back out on the ice and skated a little bit before going back to the dressing room. He would later return in the game. But that would have been unfortunate, too, just to have to deal with yet another injury. I mean, they would have been down to 10 guys, and they were at one point in the second. But good to see Kes get up and go back to the bench and then able to return later on in the game.
Yeah, I mean, anytime he goes down from an injury at this point, you're expecting him never to get up again. That's what I feel like, because every time I watch him, I just feel like he's so frail out there. Like, he's going to get hit in the hip once, and he's just going to be done for the rest of his life. I feel bad for the guy. I was hoping he was okay. Luckily, he came back. I mean, at this point, I would also wish Silfverberg could have come back too, because at least, Silfverberg is doing something right now, and we could actually get something for Jakob Silfverberg. We've been kind of harsh on Ryan Kesler, saying he should get bought out in the offseason. We both love Ryan Kesler. I'm not disputing that, but you look at his play lately, is it really worth keeping him around at 6.8 when you can buy him out and pay, like 2.2 for the next 4 or 5 years? Probably would rather do that. Glad he's okay, but again, he didn't really look too great in this game.
No, he didn't. Moving on, here's the atrocity. The third period. The Ducks had a lead going into the third period, 3 of their last 4 games, and would find a way to blow it yet again. But not before Jimmy Howard had to make a great save. Rickard Rakell would find Adam Henrique on the power play for a one-timer, and they were able to make that seam pass through the penalty kill, and Howard just gobbled it up, and the whistle didn't go. Nobody kind of knew where it was. And I was like, maybe that squeaked. It didn't squeak, and Howard covered it up. But that was a turning point, because had that gone in, that would have been a 2-0 lead for the Ducks, and it might have changed the scope of the third period. But big save there on Jimmy Howard, from Jimmy Howard.
Jimmy Howard's actually been good. Despite the Red Wings being awful this year, he's kind of in like a similar spot as John Gibson. Obviously not to the same extent, but Jimmy Howard's actually had a pretty solid season, and then just the team in front of him sucks. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, the Red Wings had won 13 of their last 16 games. The Ducks are on a 12-game losing streak now. And their goaltenders haven't really been the issue. It's been everything else. The Ducks can't score goals. The Red Wings can't keep the puck out of the back of their net. And they really can't score any goals either. I guess against the Ducks you can. But, yeah, I mean, he's been good all year. He's kind of an enigma in net, right? It's like you never really consider him an elite goaltender, but then he'll have these long stretches where he'll just put together some really decent play and actually, like, you would put him up there with some of the top goalies in the league, but he just doesn't do it on a consistent basis.
No, and that's fine. He was supposed to be the guy that was going to be booted out of Detroit at one point. It was supposed to be Peter Mrazek's net, and then it turned out to be Mrazek. Had one great season, then fell off, and then got moved out. So, good on Jimmy Howard to retain his own crease, right? Let's go on here in the third period. Let's get to the goals. I don't want to talk about any other notes. Let's get these goals through.
Do we have
a lot of Duck stuff.
They're so depressing.
Mantha,
they're not even that great.
For Mantha to see you on a cross-ice pass on a rush. Puck gets deflected by Rowney. Mantha swats it in anyway. It's all of a sudden 1-1. Nothing you could really fault on there. Just a great hand-eye coordination play by Anthony Mantha. And Gibby went through his arm in the body. That's a tough one, but it was it was on the rush, and it was a cross-ice pass. It was a great play, but they were by Detroit. Going to run through these. Next was Nyquist on a tip off a shot from DeKeyser. Gibby was screened. Gibby looked irritated after that goal. I don't know if you saw, but he put his arms up. He's like, "You guys kidding me? Dodgen's right in front."
Yeah, and he can't do anything anyway. I think even if Dodgen's not there, that's a perfect tip. Like, he tips it out of midair. It goes all the way down, basically, to pad level on Gibson. And
through his arm in the body. Yeah. But Gibby didn't even see the DeKeyser shot coming. I think that's what he was probably upset about, is he didn't get a chance to see the original shot. Okay, now it's 2-1. This is unreal. Again, we get to go to the third period and suffer through this. And then the third and final goal will be Darren Helm. Helm gets I don't know if it was deflected past Gibson, but another chance.
Yeah. For sure it was deflected.
Yeah, it looked like it was going on the ice that went rocketing up. It was an unfortunate attempt to clear. I guess you could say lackadaisical clear there by Hampus Lindholm. Gets intercepted. Helm gets it back. And then he still has all the time to shoot with Lindholm skating in front of him. This team has just died. They've just given up.
It's over.
It's all of a sudden now a 3-1 game. And that's all she wrote. We're at 12, man. So I did it easy for you. I went quick.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that. I mean, they weren't great goals. I guess you can't really blame them too much for those ones. I mean, in the other games you look at it, and it was some defensive lapses that led to it. But the Nyquist goal, it's a bit of a screen in front, but, I mean, it's a tip. And what are you going to do on that one? And like, again, I'm making excuses on some of these goals, but the Ducks just didn't play well enough. The fact of the matter is that the last 3 games they've come into the third period with a lead, and they've found ways to lose every time. And now you had 3 chances there going into the third period where the chances are if you're leading going into the third, you have a better chance of winning the game. And they found a way to lose every time. And the streak could have ended at 10, could have ended at 11, could have ended tonight, but they couldn't close it out, and they just collapsed badly in every game.
They can't keep it together. They just can't keep it together. Looking at the chances were close. Actually, just 2 apart, 21-19 in favor of Detroit, and then high danger chances were 4-2 in favor of Detroit. There literally was not a lot of good hockey being played on the ice, but the Ducks just found a way to lose again. And it's at 12. Is it time to fire Carlyle? Is it time to start looking at Bob Murray's job? Is it time to start trading people? Oh, we had a trade. Andrew Cogliano. Thank God he wasn't a leader in the locker room, part of the core, or a fan favorite, or nobody's going to get upset about this move, especially for the return. He gets traded to Dallas for Devin Shore, who I mentioned earlier on in our broadcast here that he's 7 years younger, a little less than $1 million per season, and I guess another year off the contract compared to Cogliano. That's a tough trade for the fans, but in actuality, it doesn't do anything for this team, positive or negative, when you look at it on paper.
No, it's just a weird trade in the moment. I mean, if this trade happens at the middle of the season or even at the deadline, you're like, oh, sure, whatever. They're getting younger. They're freeing up a little bit of cap space, which Bob Murray said it was to sign Silfverberg. But either way, they're freeing up cap space, getting younger. It's a trade that makes sense. I think it's a good trade. But in the timing of it all, it makes no sense when you're trying to get the leaders of this team to turn things around. Cogliano's a well-liked player. The only thing that makes sense to me here is Bob Murray's trying to send a message to his team, being like, hey, nobody's really off limits. This guy's well-liked. I don't like the leadership. I don't like the direction that this team's going in. He's getting traded. You guys turn something around, and it didn't work. I mean, I don't know how you expect that to work. What are they going to do other than be pissed off? Do you think it's going to spur them into the right direction? I mean, it reminds me a bit, it's not the same situation, but of the CEO's comments in Dallas where he just flamed Ben and Sagan, and that ended up working out. I don't think it was because of him. I just think they're good players, and eventually they're going to start playing well. But he took credit for that. And Bob Murray, if this team turned it around and they won tonight and they started winning games, he would say it was because he traded Cogliano and changed the culture in the dressing room. But we knew none of that was really going to change. He's just trying to, as Chip would say, provide a shiny object to distract away from the fact that this team is god-awful and we're on an 11-game losing streak. And he's like, hey, I'm going to trade this big name, as in like a big name fan favorite, a guy that everybody knows and loves, and distract you guys and maybe get you mad or about something else while the losing streak continues.
Yeah, it's just unreal that this was the answer. And then he doubles down like he always does on Randy Carlyle not going anywhere. That's not an option. Essentially is what he's saying, because he put a lot of this weight on the players. But let's read his comment. He says, first off, as part of the organization, I just want to thank Cogs for his 8 years of hard work, showing up every day and being a total professional. We hope nothing but the best for him and his family. Okay, that's a canned answer or a canned statement. We get it. Everyone says that about them, even if it was terrible. And then the next question, was this a message-sending trade? Here's big old Bobby's answer. We've been trying to change things since the last time we talked. This became available. We're trying to get younger, but we're also looking for people with a little more creativity because we're not scoring enough goals. So you bring in a guy with just the same amount of production, Bob. He says, it's not fair to single out Cogs. It's not because of him. It's just something that became available. We're trying to get better because we're not good enough.
That's horseshit.
He accomplished the getting younger part. He accomplished maybe saving a little bit of money, but in actuality, he didn't do anything to make this team better. And I honestly feel like Cogliano's a better player. So it is what it is. But how do you feel about that? It was definitely a message-sending trade because it wasn't like they went out and moved significant pieces, right?
I find it hard to believe it's just something that just became available after that night. You know what I mean? After he makes a comment saying he's not going to fire Randy Carlyle, and he essentially shifted the blame onto the players, right? I find it hard to believe that, it's weird that he thinks we're just going to believe that, oh, Dallas called him up that night and said, hey, we want Andrew Cogliano, we'll give you Devin Shore. And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm sure he looked out and
I think didn't Nil come out and say it happened like a week prior? They were talking about it a week prior.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure that's the case. And Bob Murray now, with the losing streak getting to the point where it was, he's trying to make a statement. But yeah, I agree. I think Cogliano right now is the better player. I don't know if long term he's going to be the better player. I'm sure Devin Shore has a little bit of a higher ceiling than Cogliano. He's a very similar player, maybe not as fast, but his specialty is the PK. His shot attempts and his possession numbers weren't really great, but he's supposed to be a shot suppressor. So that is something the Ducks could use, even though they could also use goals. The Ducks could use a lot of things. And again, I don't think this is a bad trade. By any means, I don't think this is a bad trade. It's just a weird one. It's why do you need to make this trade now? At the deadline, sure, if Dallas wants a leader or to try to push them into the playoffs, but it's such a lateral move. I mean, if you're trying to make this team better, then make a bigger move to make this team better. Move one of the defensemen, bring in a forward, or make a big move. That's how you're going to make this team better. Or embrace the rebuild and trade Cogliano for picks to try and make this team better in the future. It's such a cop-out answer to say, oh, we traded Cogliano for Devin Shore and we think it made us a better team.
So let me read you this. So here's what Nil had to say, the management team basically from the Dallas Stars. He says, he knows that Cogliano won't light up the scoreboard. This is from the paper, or Sports Day. It says, won't light up the scoreboard like a top six forward. Nil said his acquisition will help him with more depth. He says we're going to play faster and it creates more opportunities. When you get in on pucks, I think it's going to help our forecheck. In the end, you're playing in two zones, your zone and the other team's zone. He enhances that, which he does. Cogliano is a play driver. Cogliano is someone who he's also a penalty killer, so he plays in multi-facets of the game. I think he's a better player even at 31 over Devin Shore, who's 24. I think this actually makes the Ducks worse. All it does is really save them a little bit of money. That's literally all this was to me, other than maybe sending a message. A little bit of money saving, which apparently they haven't cared about the past couple of seasons. And then also just to shake up the core of the team, because he's a very well-respected player in that Ducks locker room. And what else could it be? How does Bob not say he's not sending a message?
I don't know. I don't get it. And David says, sorry guys, Shore is better than Cogs.
No, he's not.
I don't think it's discernible to say if one's better than the other. I think that it's literally a lateral move. They're almost identical players in what you're going to get from them on the ice. Maybe in the locker room it's a bit different. Sure, Cogliano's 31. He's been around the team for 8 years. That's going to be different, but that doesn't change anything on the ice. If it did, then the Ducks would have been winning games with Andrew Cogliano if what his presence in the locker room made a real difference. So I don't think it's really a big deal. I think a lot of it comes around the fact that Cogs is a fan favorite, obviously with the Iron Man streak and everything that's going on. He's just generally a good guy as well. So it's become a bigger deal than it is, but I mean, it's such a pointless move. It's just such a lateral move, and the only thing that comes to mind for me is like you said, Bob Murray's trying to make a statement. That's it. Otherwise, he doesn't make this deal. If they're not on an 11-game losing streak, I don't think he makes this trade. There's no point. There literally is no point to making this trade unless you're trying to make your team younger and trying to build for the future. But he didn't even mention that. He said he's trying to say that this is making the team better, so he's hiding something. He doesn't want to come out and say that I'm sending a message. Just have the balls to come out and say, I'm trying to send a message. We all know you're trying to send a message.
He says here, the question was asked, how does this trade impact the team? He says, this is all about us. I'm not here to try and just make the playoffs every year. You can do that, and maybe you can make a push. But I'd like to get back to where we're a team that, if we get into the playoffs, has a chance to win. Right now, this team, I said it earlier, I don't believe this group has a chance to win. It's time for changes. We've heard it several times over the past couple of seasons, and we just haven't seen anything significant come through the pipeline to this roster that would warrant those comments where these are significant changes. So he keeps going on with that. He just kind of wrap up this piece here with a trade talk. He says, I've been talking for a long time. I'm trying to create. Definitely every day we're trying to get better. It's difficult, but some things all of a sudden can happen. I don't know when they will, but my whole focus right now is on the players. We've got to get better. Unfortunately, with this group, some of our mid-20s guys, Manson, Lindholm, Bauer, who I thought would be taking on leadership and standing up, it's time for people to stand up and be counted. I'm waiting. Enough is enough. I'm a bit surprised. I thought some of the people would be farther along in this vein where they have the experience and they've been around enough where they know how to do it when the going gets tough. It's very tough right now. He is literally blaming the roster that he put together, mind you, and gave Randy Carlyle, who doesn't know how to do anything with an NHL team in today's day and age. So what is he going to do?
I have never seen somebody he's blaming the players, but completely absolving himself of responsibility when they're the players he brought in. It's amazing to watch and to see. Like, he literally believes he's not at fault here, and it's just the players. But hey, buddy, you're the one who put this team together. There's a lot on your shoulders as well. If these are the players you brought in, and all of a sudden they're not working out like you're saying they are, and they're not taking on leadership roles, that's on you. You're the one who brought them into this team. It's obviously it's a bit on them as well, but you're the one who thought they would get to that point, and they didn't. You're also the one who thought bringing Randy Carlyle back would be a good decision, and that didn't work out. It didn't work out either. Now, I like Bob Murray. I like what he's done for this team. I don't like some of the trades he's made. I don't like how sometimes he sits back and sits on his assets. But generally, the drafting that him and the scouting team have done have been really good, one of the best in the league. And he's generally not a horrible general manager. But lately, that's harder and harder to believe with some of the decisions he's making. And just how he's kind of been a hypocrite and not wanting to admit his own mistakes. Not firing Randy Carlyle because you don't want to fire him because you've brought him in for the second time and it didn't work out. Not owning up and saying, it's his fault because he built this team. Blaming it on the players. Trading a fan favorite to make a statement. I mean, these are all desperate moves by general managers trying to turn things around. You can't have a GM sitting there he shouldn't even feel like he's on a hot seat. He isn't. But he's making moves like his job is at jeopardy. Keeping the coach, not owning up to your mistakes, trading Cogliano. Like, why do you have to do any of those?
Don't know. He's just searching for answers. I guess you should start with how this team is being coached. I don't know why he's avoiding that like the plague, but he is. So here's what he had to say about Devin Shore. I like his hockey brain. I like the way he creates. I like when he has the puck. He creates things. Okay. We need a lot more of that. Unfortunately, we're losing some speed. So there he gives a little tip of the hat to Cogliano's patented speed. We're very confident in Devin, so we should be okay that way. Just to change. We're younger, and that's what we have to do right now. That's fine. Devin Shore didn't have a terrible game tonight, I didn't think. We can dig into more of him after we see him for the next 5-6 games, right? We can give more of a complete answer on how he fits in with his team. But he was also asked, what phase is the team in right now, Eddie? And he says it's a transition. Some teams have to go down and build it and draft really high for a bunch of years. I don't think we're in that category. There's your answer. We're not losing for Hughes. We're not Crapo for Kakko. We're not doing anything to get a draft pick in the top 5 or top 10. They want to stay competing. He says we have some good young players coming who have some success right now, and I want to keep that going. I don't think it needs to be a long process. That's why things like today were very difficult to do. They have to happen so the transition doesn't take forever. So there's your answer, everyone. Those of you who've already read it.
He makes some good points, but he also then avoids trying to really say where this team is at. Now, I don't think the Ducks are in a position where they have to lose for a bunch of years, as he says. I don't think they're that bad, and I think the prospects that they have are good enough that they're going to come in and make this a better team eventually. So they don't have to be bad for a bunch of years, but they have to be really bad for like 1 or 2 years. This year included, maybe next year. Get a couple high picks to rebuild this forward group and then move on. Goaltending, obviously that's fine. Defense, still pretty good. I think when you have Lindholm, Montour, Manson, and Fowler, that's not too bad. And then Jakob Larsson, Josh Mahura coming up, like, it's not horrible. You can win with that on the back end. I don't think you need an elite defenseman, and I think Hampus Lindholm, in my eyes, is an elite defenseman. He's a very good player. He's just being asked to do way too much at this point. Up front is the real concern. The Ducks have a lot of good young prospects: Steele, Terry, Comtois, Max Jones. They have a lot of good young prospects, Isac Lundestrom, but they don't have an elite one. They don't have anybody who's going to come in and I think is a guy who's going to be on your top line and your top power play unit. They don't have that guy. They need to go get that guy, whether it's Jack Hughes or Capo Kakko or somebody from next year, Alex Lafreniere, Quentin Byfield. They have to be bad for the next 2 years to get those picks. So he kind of avoids that, but also says that they don't have to be bad for a bunch of years. So again, Bob Murray somehow seems to make sense, but also avoids taking any responsibility. I mean, he's a pro at it. He's a pro at just
he's probably a lawyer, right?
Responsibility. Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about his other comment, though. We got to rewind it a little bit here. He talks about the player.
Is this a Silfverberg thing or no?
No, I want to get to that. That's next.
Because we have a couple questions in chat I want to get to before we lose them.
Let's do it right now then. Let's go do that. We can go back to this anytime. Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
YouTube chat's popping off, and I'm losing comments here. So David earlier in the chat asked Joel Quenneville to the Ducks or Daryl Sutter to the Ducks. Who would you rather have? Quick question.
Quenneville. Easy.
Yeah, Quenneville. I think Daryl Sutter's somewhere in Saskatchewan sitting on his ranch just enjoying not having to do anything with hockey at this point. So
looking at his shiny cup rings.
If I had to say for sure, I would probably say neither of them. But if you're meaning we have to pick, then I'm going to say Joel Quenneville. Tyson said, if this streak continues, how far could we fall by the end of the season? Is a top 5 realistic? If the streak continues, a top 5 is realistic. I still think with John Gibson and net and the players they have on this team, I think they'll not turn it around, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as some of the worst teams.
If you're gonna do this, you can't play John Gibson. if you're gonna go on the streak to get a player, and the draft like that. You have to put Chad Johnson and get a guaranteed loss every night.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel said, is this team in need of a rebuild a la Toronto and the Shanna plan, or a retail like Boston or San Jose a couple of years ago?
I think you and Jay would say retool. I know Jay's not here, but probably say retool is a little easier. The problem is what you said, Eddie, is that they don't have that star player, and this league thrives on star players. Teams do. Look what Buffalo was able to do, right? I mean, they got Rasmus Dahlin, sure, but they have Jeff Skinner and Jack Eichel lighting it up right now, right? The rest of the team's pretty mediocre. They don't really have a bunch of stars after that. So I think the Ducks are missing pieces like that. They have Ryan Getzlaf, who's amazing. His production is down this year, just like everyone else is on this team. But they need another center coming through. Before it was the big scary Ducks, with Ryan Kessler and Ryan Getzlaf, 1-2, and now it's looking like okay. So Getzlaf is kind of like Joe Thornton, who we keep saying, who's after that? We don't have a Joe Pavelski, right? We don't have that next wave of center coming through the lineup. So I like your point. Like, they need to go out and get somebody that's going to be a star in this league. It's just the way it works.
Last question before you get to Silfverberg from Ricky. He said, with the possibility of losing Silphy and Kessler for the next couple of games, who do the Ducks bring up to replace the missing center gap? I don't think they bring up anybody. I think Aberg jumps back into the lineup, and then you could probably just go you could probably shift somebody over to center if you wanted to, or you could bring somebody up. But I don't know if at this point they're going to bring anybody notable up from the Gulls. It would probably be like a Ben Street who comes up, and like Carter Rowney moves up to the third line or something. I don't see them going out and bringing up a Sam Steele or a Troy Terry or to play center at this point. Or even Kelly Kosel. I just think they would try and either force somebody to play center or just bring up Ben Street and play him at center, because he used to be a center.
They'll probably do something like that. I don't think they're going to mess with the Gulls lineup too much. They're still on a roll, so I don't really see them tinkering with that lineup.
All right, let's get into the Silfverberg comments, because we kind of put that off to the side.
Yeah. So Jakob Silfverberg, as we all know, these comments were made prior to tonight's game. Injured until further notice. He was questionable for return, but did not return in tonight's game. So Bob Murray was asked, how do you approach Jakob Silfverberg, an up-and-coming unrestricted free agent? He says, you take another crack at signing him, and we're going to do that right now, and we'll see where that goes. Sylvie knows exactly where I'm at, and he's a good hockey player. He's one of those ones right now standing up and being counted, meaning he's in Bob's good graces. He's one of the players that he looks to for production, and that has been producing, and he likes him. So he says, I have to take a shot at it, and we'll see where it goes. Last I heard, they were really far apart on contract talks. So
apparently
I don't know.
$950K makes a big difference. So
apparently, so we'll see.
I don't know. You should trade him.
Was that the definite number?
Yeah, it was $950K they saved, because Devin Shore is on 2.3 for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And Cogliano's at 3.25. Yeah, that's how much they saved in the trade. So that's how much extra cap space they have to sign Silfverberg. So I don't know how that makes such a big difference. I mean, it's a decent amount of money, but if you're looking at $4 or $5 million, maybe even close to $6 million for Jakob Silfverberg, that's not a big deal. $950K is not a big deal. And then he's also, like Dave brought up in here, he's taking a spot from Steele, Comtois, Jones, Lundestrom, any of those guys who could come up next year. Do you really want him doing that? I like Jakob Silfverberg. I like what he brings to this team. I think if they were good, he'd be a valuable third liner, a penalty kill guy, a shorthanded threat. I like him on a championship team. When you're rebuilding, trade him for assets. I think that makes the most sense at this point, because if you sign him to 5 years and you're not going to be good for at least the next 3 years, I think you would say, until everybody is ready and ready to go, maybe the next 3 to 5 years until the Ducks are really good. He's going to be 32. And I don't think he's going to be the same player he is now. So move him now when his trade value is the highest. Get something for him, whether it's a late first, a second-round pick, some kind of B-rated prospect. Just get something that can improve this team's future. Take a shot on a guy who maybe isn't playing that well. Maybe look at Josh Hosang and with the Islanders. Maybe go out and get a guy like that. Look how it worked with Pontus Aberg. He was a great addition to this team on the waiver wire. Daniel Sprong they brought in as a similar type of guy, a guy who wasn't working in one organization and is working over with the Ducks. Make one of those trades. Make something. Get something for him instead of trying to force yourself to sign him and taking up cap space and spots from some of the younger players.
So Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet was on Calgary's Sportsnet 960, and this was yesterday. He said, after the discussion about Randy Carlyle, Friedman noted of Murray that he made one trade today, so that was Cogliano, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to make some more. Given the chance to expand on that thought, the insider says, I don't think I'd be surprised at all if Silfverberg gets traded. I heard that Pittsburgh was kicking tires on him earlier in the year. I think the fact that Silfverberg hasn't been signed yet as a pending UFA, I heard that he and the Ducks, they weren't close or they were really battling and it was a hard grind to get it done. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's going somewhere too at some point. The other thing that Anaheim, Fowler was out for a long time. He's a really big part of their team. Raquel was out for a long time. He's a big part of their team. I think Bob wanted to give those guys get those guys back in the lineup before really committing to making a coaching change. I mean, we'll see, but it's pretty obvious to me that he's going to be looking at a few things. So there's a little bit of insight that Bobby was waiting and that Silfverberg and the Ducks just aren't getting it done right now. So that's the news on Silfy.
I'd have to look at his comments he said as well. I don't think he's not the type of guy who's gonna outright come out and say that he is trying to trade Jakob Silfverberg.
No.
So him saying that he's looking to re-sign him, that could just be fluff, and so that he's not gonna come out and make trying to drop any speculation. Bob Murray generally likes to avoid speculation on trading players. Even when Cam Fowler, I think you'd mentioned either in the stream today or last podcast that Bob Murray had gotten close to trading him last year, and then ended up signing him. And there was no indication from Bob Murray whatsoever that he was ever considering trading him. I don't think he's that type of general manager where he creates controversy by saying, oh yeah, we're not looking to sign this guy, or we're not close. Where he'll just come out and say, oh yeah, we're looking to re-sign him, and that's what we're hoping to do. And then by trade deadline, he'll get traded. That's what I hope it is, because I don't think Bob Murray's ever come out and said we're openly trying to trade a guy. That's just not his style. But I hope he's making moves. You got to hope he is at this point. Nothing's going right. You don't want to lose Jakob Silfverberg for nothing when you can get assets for him. And maybe this is the year that they start trying to retool and they move out some pieces, whether that is the guys we mentioned before, Brandon Montour, Josh Manson, Adam Henrique, Cam Fowler. I mean, these are all possibilities at this point, some more likely than others. But if I had to put money on it, I don't think Jakob Silfverberg is a Duck after the trade deadline.
I would definitely put my money on the same notion. So what I wanted to rewind back to here was when Murray made the comments about not getting what he wanted out of his guys who were in their mid-20s, right? So he's got to be talking about Montour. He's talking about Fowler. He's talking about Manson. I mean, who else is in this group that he was hoping was going to step up and make themselves noticed and carry this team through? I mean, that's largely what you put on a superstar, right? That's something you put on Austin Matthews, or you put on a Johnny Gaudreau, or you put on a Mark Scheifele, guys like that. I mean, it's tough to put that sort of pressure on guys who just they're not superstars.
Rickard Rakell,
they're not a superstar.
But if we're looking in the future of this team, he's going to be a big part of the future of this team. He should be a 20 to 30 goal scorer, 60 to 70 point guy based off what we've seen. That responsibility should fall on his shoulders at this point. He hasn't been good enough. Yeah, he's been injured, but he really hasn't stepped up this year. I think a lot of that should be on him. And then Cam Fowler as well. Again, had his injury problems, but hasn't really looked good all year. Josh Manson should be taking on a leadership role. He's wearing the A on occasion, I believe, isn't he? And he's been horrible. All year he's been horrible. He's had a couple good games, but he hasn't been good. So I get his comments. I can see that. I think we can all see that. There's a lot of players who haven't taken a step forward, and a significant number of them who've taken a step backwards. Pretty much every player has taken a step backwards, except maybe Nick Ritchie and Andre Kasha. I think those are the only guys that were here last year you could say haven't taken a step forward. Maybe Brandon Montour, you could say, is either on par or taking a small step forward, but not many guys have. So I get those comments. I understand them. I actually agree with them. and that there's a transition in this team, and some guys just haven't bought into it and haven't been able to fill the role that some other guys have had before. But I don't think that necessarily means you give up on them all right now. It's tough to be a leader and for everybody, especially when you're going through a 12-game losing streak. It takes the guys who are really captain material to actually stick it out and still be a leader during a slump like that. Obviously, Ryan Getzlaf, he's a guy who can endure that. New territory for him as well, so it's interesting to see how he handles it. But yeah, it has been disappointing that some of these guys just haven't been able to step up. Yeah,
it's a bummer, but I mean, it's time for change, man. That's what we have to do. I'm a big proponent of burning it down and trading whatever we have to do to get the correct prospects or picks in order to start some sort of maybe even a partial rebuild. But I do know there's guys in the AHL, and I'm just frustrated. But I do know there's guys in the AHL that could come up here and make a difference here in the next season or two. But you said it, man. There's no superstars waiting to get into Anaheim's lineup. We would have seen them. But to wrap the comments on Bob Murray, he says, was it difficult? He was asked, was it difficult parting with a core player such as Cogliano? He says, as much as some of us may sound like we're heartless, last night wasn't very good. Let's leave it at that. So there it is. That's Bob Murray talking about bringing in Devin Shore for Andrew Cogliano, addressing Jakob Silfverberg, and then also pretty much putting his entire team who's in their mid-20s on blast. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen here. Not once did he mention his coaching staff.
No.
Not once.
Frank has a question from the YouTube chat. He says, what changes or moves could we expect in the next 24 hours?
Firing of Randy Carlyle. Just kidding.
Yeah, and he posted a video from NHL Network. I did pop it up for a second. I can't watch it with sound because we're on the stream right now. But NHL Network, in the quote that they tagged it on, it was Mike Parrish, Mike Johnson, and Jamison Coyle were addressing the Ducks' 12-game winless streak. And the quote says they need a drastic change and they need it now. It's about a minute and 40-second video. So go ahead and check NHL Network on Twitter if you want to see that. But yeah, I mean, that's obvious. They've needed a drastic change, and they've needed it now for the last 5 games. And the only change they made is Andrew Cogliano. In reference to his question, what changes do we see in the next 24 hours? I don't think anything. I don't think he's going to fire his coach after praising him and saying he's not going to get rid of him 2 games ago. I don't think he's really considering it. I still think there's a small chance if they break the record that he's just going to be forced to, or the ownership group is going to step in and do something at that point, because now you've set history, and that's forever going to follow this team for the rest of until somebody else breaks it, right? That you're going to be the worst team in history when it comes to losing streaks. That's not a fun thing to have on your resume. So at that point, maybe something could change. But following tonight's loss, I don't think they do anything. I don't think there's a move made tomorrow, especially if Jakob Silfverberg is hurt. I can't see anybody else on this roster being traded at this point.
No, look, Randy's going to get the benefit of the doubt again for injuries. That's another thing, too. We've talked about it before. Yeah, well, these guys were injured. Fowler was injured. Perry's injured. Ease was injured. Getzlaf's missed time. You look up and down the lineup, most of the guys have missed time. So who knows? I mean, what I expect, exactly what you said, nothing. Nothing's going to change here in the next 24 hours. If we were closer to the deadline, maybe. But the Ducks are really going to have to go full steam into this crash in order for Carlyle to get fired. But maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what it takes anymore. If this was, I want to say that coaches have done less bad things in this league and been fired.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wouldn't you say that?
I'd really like to know when the last 12-game losing streak was, and if every time a coach has gotten fired or not. Because normally at this point, especially a team who was supposed to be good, like this, the Ducks aren't supposed to be on a 12-game losing streak. They were supposed to be a playoff team this year. Maybe not a contender, but they were supposed to be a playoff team. I don't know any team that's gone into the season supposed to be a playoff team and has lost 12 games and a coach hasn't got fired.
I had them missing the playoffs, just for everyone. I had them missing the playoffs this year.
That's right, you did. Traitor at the beginning of the year. You also had Arizona sneaking in, which actually might come true. That actually might come true, though. You might want to. I had Calgary finishing top of the division, so that's
Makes sense.
That's working out for me. You take the little wins when the Ducks are on a 12-game losing streak, right? We'll look at our predictions for other teams and hope that that they come true. But no, I don't think Randy's getting fired. I don't think he's getting fired unless they hit historic proportions with this team. And Chase says, do you think the owners will tell Bob to fire Randy? Maybe if it gets to that point. But they seem like they're fully on board with what Bob Murray has. I mean, they handed him an extension. They obviously like what he's doing there. So what you're going to have to admit that you were wrong giving him an extension by forcing him to fire the coach, because I don't think it's going to come out in a statement that Bob Murray has decided to let this guy go. He's going to be like, the ownership group told me I got to let him go.
He's not going anywhere. I don't know what you have to do to get fired in Anaheim, but Randy Carlyle's job is probably the safest in the state. Pretty much. I think he has got a very safe job right now. We want to get to some questions. You want to go to Twitter first?
Yeah, I got to bring up Lek Kotz is doing work in the chat with stats tonight. He said the last losing streak of 12 was New Jersey in 2014. So even that, it's been, what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
So
who was a coach? Who was the coach then? I'm trying to think. It wasn't John Hines, right?
No, it would have. I don't even remember who their coach wasn't. Lou Lamoriello behind the bench at one point in New Jersey when they were doing like really bad.
I don't know if it was that recent.
I got to find out who New Jersey's coach was at that point, because I want to see if he got fired after that. You would have to think the Devils were.
Oh, John Hines got hired in 2015. Okay.
So they must have stuck out the season with him.
It was
so
Pete DeBoer. That's right. Before he went to, it was Pete DeBoer.
Did he get fired in that run?
Pete DeBoer was. Let's see.
I can't even. He got fired December 26, 2014. So I think so. He must have.
Yeah, he must have got fired after that streak.
His record at that time wasn't that great. So yeah. He probably got fired on that streak. I don't see why he wouldn't, especially if it was in 2014 that they had that losing streak and he lasted until December. He lasted until just after Christmas. That's pretty brutal. The current San Jose coach, yes, David, the current San Jose coach, Pete DeBoer, had a 12-game losing streak with the New Jersey Devils. We'll get to actually some questions in YouTube before we go everywhere else, because we got some here.
Perfect.
Frank said, could any one of our mid-20s guys that GMBM talked about, could they be attached to a big-name player contract to be moved? So could they be attached to Perry, Kessler, Fowler? I mean, Fowler's a big name in his own right, but could you attach like a Montour with a Kessler and move him or something like that?
That's tough. You got to have. I see where you're going with this. You would have to have Kessler essentially agree to it. Because, I mean, he's got that no move. He's not going anywhere. I could see Fowler being moved, honestly. I could. But the organization kind of likes Cam a lot. So I wonder if it's along the lines of maybe a Manson or maybe the guy who was tough to sign, Brandon Montour, and you get some pieces. But they'd be dumb to move Brandon Montour. So you have to really figure out where the balance is. If you're going to move something you don't want, you're right. You have to attach a nice name to it. That's a nice shiny object. And I think it's tough to move guys with no move clauses, but moving a guy in his own right, like Jakob Silfverberg or a Josh Manson or Cam Fowler, I think those are all viable options for Anaheim. They'd be insane to get rid of Brandon Montour or Hampus Lindholm. In my opinion, anyway.
I don't think you can attach a big name to a big contract right now and move it. Nobody's touching Corey Perry with the injury. Nobody's touching Ryan Kessler. You wouldn't want to move Ryan Getzlaf at this point. Those are the biggest contracts the Ducks have. Cam Fowler, he's a big enough name in his own right that you could probably just move him on his own, and somebody would take on that contract and hope that he could turn around and be a top 4 defenseman for them, which I think he would be. He's still a good player. But nobody's moving with Kessler and trying to get that off. It kind of goes into Daniel's question. He says possible buyouts this offseason, Eves, Kessler. Those are the only two in my opinion, and you're only going to do one.
Yeah, you got to buy out Ryan Kessler. You have to. I mean, as much as it sucks to say, but you just kind of have to do it. He's playing on the 4th line now. Unless he goes into the summer and is able to completely rehab and be back to close to what he used to be prior to this year, then you think about it. But at his level of play right now and the way he's able to produce on the ice right now, he's just do you really want $6.8 million sitting on your 4th line?
No,
No?
not really. No, not at all.
So
All right,
that's the one to buy out.
quick update before we get into some of these questions from social media. If for anybody who's new to the YouTube chat for tonight or whatever, because we got a lot of people in here, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you know when we go live. It will give you an update, so that if you're not following us on social media, it's easier to find. Also, it just helps us grow the channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please just hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Let's hit up Twitter first with the questions, because there was a fair amount on there. So let's see. Again, Skid McMarks on Twitter. Still my favorite Twitter handle by far. Why doesn't Getzlaf shoot more? I feel as though he had some opportunities that he could snipe a shot to produce a goal, or at the very least a good rebound. I get that he's a playmaker, but a playmaker should also shoot sometimes to make a play, right?
Yeah, he should. But, I mean, this is a question that's been asked time and time again of Ryan Getzlaf, and he just said it's not in his, basically in his makeup as a hockey player to be that guy to shoot the puck. He's always going to look for the play first, unless it's like a bang-bang play, which we saw him score a couple nights ago. So
yeah,
it's always just been Ryan Getzlaf's MO. He's never going to shoot the puck and be a 25, 30 goal guy. He's done that a couple times in his career, but he's at that point now. I think he's just creating plays. I think he's done shooting the puck.
But he should. I mean, like you said, he's a 20 goal guy at one point, right? Like, he should shoot the puck more, but he doesn't. And I don't know if it's just with age or just what he has to do with his team, or because he's just a great playmaker and he's never really shot the puck at a high level. But when he is shooting the puck, he's putting goals in the back of the net. And he's actually not doing that bad this year. He has 10, right? 10 or 11. So he could realistically, if he gets hot, hit 20. So there are times where he doesn't shoot the puck, but he has more goals than I think he normally has at this point in the season. So it's not so bad for him this year, just bad for everybody else. I mean, the fact that Getzlaf is almost tied with the team lead in goals is probably not a good sign when you've got guys like Aberg and Silfverberg who are also up there, and guys you expect to be up there like Rickard Rakell isn't. So I think that's tough. I think asking Ryan Getzlaf to shoot more at this point, I think that's just kind of something we hear all the time, and it's never really going to happen.
It's just not for him. It's just not the way he plays.
Skip Marks also had a question that we already answered. He said, who gets called up to play for Kess and Silf while they're out injured? I don't think anybody gets called up unless it's like Ben Street. They're not going to bring up Terry or Steele or Jones at this point.
No, it's going to be that's going to be Aberg's chance to get back in the lineup.
Garrett asked, he wasn't able to watch most of the game. How did Devin Shore look tonight? In your opinion, you watched all the games, so
I think he looked okay. When he was on the ice. I mean, none of the guys really stood out and were awesome. I mean, clearly because they lost, but I think he did okay in his debut. I didn't see him do anything that negatively impacted the team.
Yeah, he'll be at his best when you don't notice him, and then occasionally he'll do something on offense that will make him noticeable. Like, I think he scored 2 goals against the Ducks, or was that? No, I think that was Jason Dickinson when the Stars played. But he's looked good on occasion when the Ducks have played the Stars, and like he has that in him every now and then. But more so, or more often than not, if you're not noticing him, he's generally doing a good job, because he's usually doing something on the defensive side of the puck or on the penalty kill and making good plays there. So I think that's a good thing that we didn't notice him. I think he looked good, but I wasn't expecting too much from him. I mean, I was expecting what we get from Cogliano, right? So I kind of not disappointed, but I'm also not impressed. Enrique says, out of all the Ducks jerseys that have been used throughout franchise history, which is your favorite?
I'll let you take that one first.
If I have to go recently, I do like the 3rd jerseys, but of all time, if anybody watching on YouTube can see it in the background, I've got Paul Kariya, the eggplant jersey, hanging on my door. So that's the favorite. I have to go with that one. Those ones were just so iconic. I mean, that's, if you ask 9 out of 10 Ducks fans, probably all of them are going to say one of the Mighty Ducks jerseys, I think. I don't think many people's favorites are the new jerseys, maybe the 3rd jersey, but again, because it has some reference to the Mighty Ducks jerseys.
I would say my favorite jersey is that one. I like the home one, the white one. I like the eggplant. but I also have the Korea one. But if I had to pick a favorite third jersey, as much as I like this one, I like the orange ones from last year. My favorite is the one that says Anaheim, and it's black, and it has a little bit of eggplant and silver on it. I do like that one, and it's one of the jerseys I don't have. So that's one of my favorite jerseys that I don't have, and I'd like to grab, honestly. But I got to go with PK's jersey too. I got to go with not PK Subban, Paul Korea.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Ice Tigers Forever on Instagram said, can this team go on a winning streak? Will they ever win a game again? And do they lose because Perry is injured? A lot to break down there. Can this team go on a winning streak? Probably. They already have this year. They are a very streaky team. At this point, it doesn't look like that's very likely, but I'm sure they can. Maybe a 2 or 3 game winning streak. I don't think they're going to flip it around and go on a 12-game winning streak, but I think any team can string 2 games together. The Detroit Red Wings just strung 2 games together with back-to-back wins, and they lost 13 of their last 16 games. So, yeah, they can. Will they ever win a game again? Probably. Doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon.
Of course they will.
It doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon. But, yeah, they're going to get a win. There's no way they're going to finish this season out and lose completely. They're going to get a game where they get some puck luck or whatever. A game like tonight where they just don't collapse and they're able to hold it out. I don't know when that's going to be because they haven't really played that well as of late, and they're playing some good teams coming up. They play Minnesota on Thursday, which isn't going to be an easy game. But ending the streak against Boudreaux would be perfect entertainment, which would be nice and would be perfect.
That's going to be a tough game.
A perfect made for TV moment. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. Minnesota's a good team, so I don't know. Yeah, they'll win again.
Yeah, they're definitely going to win in this. We just don't know when.
And I don't think they're losing because Perry's out. I think he would help, but I don't think that he would make a huge difference, right? So,
no, I would agree with that.
Let's see. On Instagram, we've got a question from Star Wars. It said, what dance or ritual do we have to do to keep the Ducks players healthy? If I knew, I'd be doing it every night so that guys don't go out injured.
I think we have to get all of us fans together and run in a flying V formation to Honda Center down Catella. That's the only way.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you guys can try it. I can't.
That's the only way. No, you have to fly here. Like all fans have to do it. So
everybody has to fly there. Okay.
Yeah, you definitely have to.
Be expensive. All right, Josip says how he wants to place a bet. How long do you think the streak's gonna get? Do you want me to bring up who they're going to play next and see maybe?
I already know who they're playing. They're playing Minnesota, then they're playing the Devils, and they're playing the Islanders. I don't think they get a win. Jesus, it's so hard for me to pick on what team they're going to beat. I'm going to say I hope they break this streak. For Jimmy, one of our listeners and Patreon subscribers, he'll be in New Jersey and in New York for the Islanders game. So I hope they break it in the Coliseum against the Islanders.
For me, if it doesn't end against New Jersey, I think it could stretch all the way out until they play Ottawa or Philadelphia, which is a few games from now.
Get out. Really?
The New York Islanders have been really, really good. St. Louis has turned things around as the way they're scoring goals. And they've got an actual decent goaltender in Jordan Binnington who's been able to win them games. You got Winnipeg again. You got the Toronto Maple Leafs. Good luck with that. Frederik Andersen's back. Montreal Canadiens. And then you got Ottawa, Philadelphia, and Vancouver. So I think the easiest matches for them if they don't beat New Jersey or Ottawa, Philadelphia. I mean, they could beat one of those better teams. But if we're looking at winnable matchups, you could lose against Minnesota. If you don't beat New Jersey, which should be the winnable game against that, then you've got to go against some 4 very good teams in a row. By the time you get to Montreal, could be at 18. 18 could be decided. So let's see. If we get to the record, which game is that? So Minnesota would be 13. New Jersey would be 14. New York would be 15. St. Louis 16. Winnipeg 17. Toronto. Oh my goodness. Frederik Andersen could be the guy who hands them their 18th straight loss in a row if it gets to that point. It's made for television. It's perfect. It's meant to be.
It's not going to go that far. It's just not. They're going to find a way to get out of it.
That could be the game we're going to.
Yeah, I'll be in Toronto for that game. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull out a bank loan to be able to afford tickets to that place, which is so stupid insane. But, yeah, I would love to go to that game. But
if the streak was at 17, I would find money to go to that game just to see the 18.
Just to say you were there,
Just to
at
say
like
we were there.
the rock bottom of a franchise. You're an ass.
It's a franchise history moment. Got to be there.
Oh,
it's like
gotta
being
be
there
there
for Paul Kariya's retirement. You got to be there for the 18th loss in a row. It's NHL history. It's not just franchise history.
I mean, I thought Winnipeg had a worse streak than Washington. I have to go back and look.
What, with 17?
Yeah, it was something
No,
stupid,
it was
right?
San Jose and Winnipeg. They already looked it up with the records with 17. The
Okay.
or not Winnipeg, San Jose and Washington. Washington, that when they're the worst team arguably in history. They set all the bad records, most shots against, worst record, longest losing streak. Like, they were just awful. And then San Jose, I would assume in their first year, I didn't really look, but I think they were the other team who was in that category of losing 17 in a row. Frank has a question in chat. Could you see the Ducks owner step in if the streak comes at 14 or 15 before reaching the 17th game and take action on changes without Bob Murray? Maybe. I don't think you would let it get to 17. Again, I don't think they're going to let it get to historical numbers. I just don't think you can. You don't want to have that stain on your resume as being, especially in a non-traditional hockey market. Is now you have, especially like this year, and that's not going to wash away in a year. That's going to stick around for a couple of years where you're like, oh, remember that year where you were worse than the worst team in history and you lost 18 games in a row? They're not going to let it get to that point. But even bringing in a new coach might not even change that, because then you got a new style they have to work in while also being on a 17-game losing streak. It could be like, oh, they win a game to end the streak and then they bring in a new guy. But I don't think he's getting fired right now. I just can't see it happening.
It's not going to. It's just not going to happen.
Let's see. Jason says, can we bring all the moms back? Is that the last time they won on the moms trip?
Oh, were they? Was that the Pittsburgh game?
Yeah.
Then maybe.
I think so. Pittsburgh and the Rangers are before that, so maybe it might have been. Dave says, do you think upper management should start calling their players horse shit to get them to play better? I mean, I'm surprised they haven't tried that yet. I mean, Bob Murray has basically said they're horse shit without saying they're horse shit.
Yeah, he's not going to say that. He just won't. But and that was the CEO. Dallas said that about Ben and Sagan. I mean, sure, call out your stars. Go ahead, do it. Do whatever you think you're going to do, because you know you're not going to fire your coach.
Dave also says, since there doesn't seem to be an end to this madness, will the Forever Mighty crew host a lottery draft party? If the Ducks are in the lottery draft, the night of the lottery draft,
I'll host a watch party.
I will definitely host a 30-minute show for that. But the most annoying thing with the draft lottery they do now is they make it into a spectacle. So they'll do every team except for like the top 3, and then they'll play like 2 periods of hockey, and they'll come back in the second intermission, and then they'll do the other 2. So they literally now make those GMs sit there for 2 intermissions, and then they draw it. It's just ridiculous. Or they probably record it and then let them go home and just play the recording after. But it's just
it's all pre-recorded crap.
I'm down for that if they're in the draft lottery. That would be pretty sweet.
Let's do that. Let's plan on it.
Joseph said, anyways, did we really just score on our very first power play without Ryan Kessler? Amazing things happen when Ryan Kessler is not on the power play. The Ducks actually can score goals.
Yeah, it's been a minute. And then I think Joseph wraps up, another Joseph Roba wraps it up with how many games does it take for Randy to get the gate?
I think I still believe if they get to 17 or if they break the record at 18, there's going to be something. Somebody forces Bob Murray either has to make something happen or the ownership group steps in. That's the only time I think it could happen. I just I still can't fathom it could get to that point. Like, we're so close. We're only 5 games away from getting to 17, but like that's still 5 losses in a row. Like, that's still 5 games you have to play and lose. Like, that a 5-game losing streak is a long losing streak. To lose another 5 games just seems unfathomable, and it's just crazy to think that this team's lost 12 games in a row and they haven't won in a month.
Well, let's ask the question and let's flip this around. Let's say they win in Minnesota, and then they lose 4 or 5 more games in a row. Does that even that should not save Randy Carlyle's job? I mean, he
No.
should have been fired, in my opinion, in the offseason this year. I don't care if they flip this around and they win the next 3 games and then lose again. Like nothing that can happen this season is ever going to make me think that Randy Carlyle should stay as a coach. But for Bob Murray, I don't know. I don't know if anything could change it. They might just ride this out to the end.
Yeah, Lecott said, "What's funny is we still have a 500 record, still in the playoffs, and we talk like we're the worst team in the NHL." I mean, that's true, but it's hard
we're
not
like
to talk
8
that way.
points from the bottom. I mean,
It's hard not to talk that way when you're on an 8-game or 12-game losing streak, and really the only reason you're in a playoff spot because you had that one stretch where you won 9 out of 10 games. The Ducks have been very, very streaky. Maybe they can go on a win streak like that again. Who knows? But I don't think they're the worst team in the league. But right now they are. The reason we're talking about them like they're the worst team in the league because they're on a 12-game losing streak. In that span of 12 games, nobody is worse than the Ducks. The Ducks are the worst team over the last 12 games. So right now they are the worst team in the league. So it's hard not to talk about them that way. I think there definitely are teams who are worse than the Ducks in roster composition and just the way they play and just who they have available to them. That I think will finish lower in the standings. But it's hard not to talk about the Ducks that way when they're on a 12-game losing streak and nobody's been worse than them at this point.
Nobody. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at points, sure, there's worse teams, but I mean, they're not too far away from the bottom. Ottawa has 39 points. Ducks have 47. Kings have 40. Ducks have 47. They lost to the Senators. They lost to Detroit. Detroit has 43 points this season. They're playing worse than the teams that they're losing to or are lower in the or that they're lower in the standings to. So yeah, and they're the only team that hasn't won a game in the last 10, 11, 12, right? I mean, we're at 12 now. So it's not a good look here, obviously, and I don't know what else to say about it because I don't know what's in Bob Murray's mind, and I can just hope that he wakes up tomorrow morning and says maybe it's time to fire my coach and make a change here. But I just don't see it happening, man. I just don't.
All right, let's wrap it up here with one last question from Frank in the YouTube chat, and then we'll wrap everything up. He said, "Do you believe the players have tuned out Randy Carlyle?" I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think they love to, people like to say that, maybe they're losing to get Carlyle fired. And I was actually asked to Elliot Tieford yesterday. He had an AMA on Twitter, and he said, no, he said the leadership in this team is frustrated. They're ultra frustrated by this. They want to win. Their compete level is there. They don't understand what's going on with this team and why they can't figure it out, but they just can't. I don't think it's an issue like that. I just think the Carlyle system sucks, and it doesn't work in today's NHL. So, I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with the players tuning them out.
Dave says, no, don't wrap it up. He wants us to keep going. But, we got it because we're going to keep talking about how Randy Carlyle is an idiot, and the Ducks don't seem like they're going to win any games anytime soon. Couple things.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
On Thursday, for the Minnesota Wild game, we will have an interview on that show, I believe, or it'll either be released before the show or the day after with Paul Campbell from In Goal Magazine. We'll be talking a lot about...
The Athletic?
Yeah. Oh, he is with The Athletic. Okay, so with The Athletic as well, we'll be talking about probably John Gibson a lot, most likely, because he is a goalie expert. We talked with him last year about John Gibson's Vezina prospects, and he said that he believed John Gibson should have been in the consideration for the Vezina. Obviously didn't end up getting that, which we all thought was ridiculous, but we'll see where he stands this year. I'm sure he's going to be in the same position as he was last year, where he thinks he should get consideration, but he probably won't because the wins won't be there, and the things that the voters love, he won't really have, unfortunately, but that will be a great interview. Me and Jason will be there for that interview, which will take place in the middle of the game against the Minnesota Wild. So likely it will be released the day after Thursday. So probably an interview we'll release on Friday on YouTube and everywhere. Another thing too, if you haven't checked us out on iTunes, make sure to go check us out and give us a review and a rating if you can there. It really helps us out to just get the podcast out there so everybody can see it. It helps us get noticed in iTunes itself as well. So it's a great way to grow our podcast. Recently, we have done some gaming on NHL 19 on Twitch. So if you haven't checked that out yet, or you haven't seen that on social media, make sure you go check that out there and give us a follow so you can see when we're going live on Twitch. I just put the link in there, but it didn't really go well on YouTube, but it's twitch.tv/forevermighty. So if you just copy and paste that into your browser, you'll take it there. We're trying to do that more often. It's not like an everyday thing, but we'll be playing NHL. Currently today, me and Pat, we're rebuilding the Anaheim Ducks from the ground up. And we got Capo Caco, so it's a good start. And we'll be doing that maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next coming days. And I'm going to try and upload those to YouTube as well. So if you can't catch it on Twitch, you'll either be able to find it in the archives on our Twitch or hopefully upload it to YouTube. And then last thing from me, Forever Mighty 3 stars, we do it at 45 minutes before every game. We post it up on our Twitter. It's 3 questions. You get points for each question you get right. It's always who scores the Ducks' first goal, what's the final score, and then we put up a random one after as well. Every game has a different random question. For every question you get right, you get 1 point on the monthly leaderboard, and whoever's leading the monthly leaderboard at the end of the month gets a nice, clean, customized jersey from our sponsors at Cool Hockey. A great contest. We love to run it. It's great to see everybody get a nice jersey at the end of the month. Unfortunately, Cool Hockey is out of the Ducks third jerseys until middle of February. You can still get one if you're the contest winner, or if you want to use our code for FM20 to go buy one and get 20% off. You can still do that. You'll just have to wait till the middle of February to get the third jerseys.
Yeah, but they're great. That's where you got to go to get one. And I would recommend waiting for one because they're very nice. But another shout out too, just to wrap this up, Daisy and Jason, our new Patreon subscribers. We really appreciate you guys subscribing and helping out with the podcast there. And enjoy the bonus shows. We do those. We try to get one done every week. We have one coming up this week, and we're going to try to knock out the next 2 the next week or so we can get them all in before the end of January. But that's what we provide you guys, and you guys kick us some cash, which helps out the show, whether it's equipment, whether it's watch parties, prizes, stuff we give away. Definitely go to Patreon and look up Puck Guys Forever Mighty, and you'll be able to check us out there. But that's it. We're long-winded tonight, over an hour and 15 minutes, Eddie. Let's wrap this up, and we'll talk to you guys on Thursday. Have a good one.
Thanks for ruining my show, by the way. That's it. I'm sorry you guys had to sit through that, but this is an obligation, contract obligation, they told me. So my kneecaps are sweating and I really got to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to have to let you guys go. Thank you. Bye.